Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh yeah, hello there, and I'm going to welcome myself back after a week's vacation. And boy, did I come back on a ridiculous day, huh? If anybody's out there listening to this as opposed to sitting raptly in front of your television listening to the commentary in Trump's trial with Mr. Cohen on the stand, I'd be doing that. I told myself not to. If anything really major happens, and you're both listening to me and the trial, I'll tell you what. Let me know. And by amazingly interesting, I don't mean his retelling of the story we all now know. I just mean if he, for instance, leaps out of the witness box and tries to strangle Trump, something like that. Otherwise, I'll assume that things are going as one expects. And in fact, things won't get truly interesting until the cross-examination. So, anyway, because I suspect that many of you are doing just that, I'm going to keep things, lighter. I know a lot happened in my absence, but I'm not going to backtrack too much. I guess what I'll start by doing is telling you that I had an eventful week away, and it solidified my aversion to travel. I have never been a great traveler. I find travel by airplane, maddening, and I find travel by car boring and endless. And I just rather be home. I'm so thrilled to be back home. But if I may, do essentially what kids are asked to do after summer vacation is over, write a little essay on what I did on my summer vacation. So here's what happened. I drove because my final destination was to my mother's home in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And on the way, I decided I would stop in Ann Arbor, Michigan to see my brother and to break up this long, long trip. And also because I was bringing my dog, and my dog and my brother's dog adore each other. And so that was a treat. I'd say I was about 45 minutes outside of Ann Arbor, just getting ready to head out of Ohio and into Michigan when I rear-ended the car in front of me. I couldn't believe it. I personally, when the moment of impact occurred, I was like, what? I mean, in total denial. I have not been in a crash that I caused ever, I think. I've been run into. I have never run into somebody else. And this was so astonishing. We were not traveling at a high rate of speed. the guy in front, there was quite a bit of traffic. The guy in front of me, it was sort of like we were all going relatively slowly. Anyway, I saw his taillights go on and I jumped on my brake, but astonishingly, the car did not stop in time, and I banged into his rear end. Um, I It wasn't a huge impact. No airbags went off because I was truly braking and frankly should have been able to brake. You don't want to be in that situation on a busy highway. And I was on a highway. After rousing myself from my denial and making sure my dog was okay, and he was, I managed to get myself over to the shoulder as one is supposed to do. The guy who I hit was in a rather large kind of pickup truck. So he was that vehicle a lot taller than mine. He then also managed to get over to the side, and we both sat there for a second before I exited my vehicle. It took him a while, and when he did get out, he was a young man and he was distressed. And I started apologizing immediately. I am so sorry. I said, I can't believe I'm so sorry. I said, it's my fault. Don't worry. Just let's exchange information. My insurance will cover everything. And he just looked at me and said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I said, no one got hurt. We're okay. I can't believe it, he said. I just got this truck today. Well, then my I'm sorry's got even more fervent. I am so sorry, I said, really. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. And I looked and he had next to no damage. There was a little something, a little thing kind of askew. I turned around and looked at my car, got the brunt. I was sort of smashed in and all of that stuff. And I apologized and apologized. And well, listen, already the vacation was not going well. So he said, I've got to call the police. I said, yeah. He called the police. He called his father. I called my insurer. I called AAA. I didn't know what the hell to do. I was in denial. Couldn't believe it. I called my brother. I said, Bill, I'm just 45 minutes outside of Ann Arbor, but it's going to be longer than that and then I told him. Oh, God, he said, well, keep me apprised. Anyway, it turns out, I will just spare you it turns out all of a sudden the guy who was standing there, whose car I hit, said, I think your car is, I'm smelling something. And it was overheating because the coolant was leaking out. And it turns out my car was, in fact, undrivable and had to be turned off immediately. So I required a tow. I called my brother again and said, I got to be towed. My car is undrivable. I think you've got to come and get me. So he had to drive. I got towed into Toledo. It was very exciting for Blue and me to be in the cab of a big tow truck. I've never been in a cab before, either had Blue. And we were like, it was an adventure. But before we got towed, I just want to say, I met the nicest people in this mishap. Thoroughly enjoyed meeting them. And you see, it often takes getting out of your home, and I tell myself this, get out of your home and you things happen and you meet people that you otherwise wouldn't, like the state trooper. Now, the state trooper was so nice. And I remember thinking, what a nice state trooper. What an unusually nice man, I thought. My first two encounters with him, as he got information from me and asked me to, I had to write out a confession. Um, I thought, what a nice person. Thank God he's a nice person. And then maybe 25 minutes later, I see him getting out of his car parked behind mine. The lights are flashing. I'm the person people are gawking at, as they drive slowly past. And the state trooper got out and started coming back. And as I saw the state trooper get out, I saw him uh, put his long hair back under his trooper hat. And I thought, oh my God, that's not a guy, it's a woman. And it was. I thought he was a strangely smooth cheeked guy. And I wondered, so this also is something that is happening to me more and more, and perhaps to you too. I can't tell women and men half the time these days. I sometimes even think, what? I and this just goes to show you that I guess things are more complicated than we think. So as a woman, I was so embarrassed not realizing that. So she came back and talked to me some more, and I talked to her, and eventually the kid I'd run into with his just purchased new used truck, he left, and I was stuck with the trooper sitting behind me waiting for a tow. When the trooper came back and gave me my license and all that stuff, and my summons to appear at a courthouse in Sylvania Township um, on May 30th, and let me know that I could instead, of course, plead guilty and write a big check. And I said, okay, yeah, I got it. And then she said, I noticed you're from Pittsburgh. And I said, I am. And she said, my husband and I are going to Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. And I'm so excited. We've never been there. And we're going to see a Braves game. I think it was the Braves. I said, oh, you're going to the best ballpark in the country. She said, I know. I've heard that. I'm so excited. And she said, I couldn't believe how expensive the hotel was. I said, what hotel? She said, well, it's right near the ballpark. I said, uh-oh, are you booked at the Renaissance? And she said, yes, that's it. I said, yeah, that's a very expensive hotel. She said, do you know any good places to eat around there? I said, well, it's full of great places to eat. And of course, I could not think of one. And that's when I realized that I was still in, frankly, a state of shock. I could picture the cultural district. I just couldn't think of the name of a million restaurants I could also picture the location of. So I said, I'm coming up blank. I'm sorry. When are you going to be there? And she said, May 17th, I think. And I said, well, I'll be back there then. Why don't you come to my house? she smiled, and then I thought, maybe this is not what you're supposed to do when you've caused a wreck and you're on the side of the road. You're not supposed to be asking the trooper to dinner. So I said, just saying, really, be more than happy. Um, anyway, at that point, I get a phone call. It's from the tow truck driver, who's very agitated and says, I'm trying to get to you. You are high priority because you're on the highway, but there's such a backup here. It's amazing. And I said, really? What's causing that? And the tow truck driver said, you. God. So eventually the tow truck driver arrived, and it too was a woman. And I thought, what? A woman state trooper? Okay, I'm not as blown away. But a woman, and a little woman driving the tow truck? That surprised me. And she was the greatest character I have encountered in some time. What fun. So I watched her do her thing. Man, was she was strong as an ox, but I don't think weighed more than 120 pounds. She's doing all the stuff, and I said, listen, am I going to be able to get in with my dog? She said, she took a look at my dog. She said, oh, no problem. So we got into the cab, the dog and me, and waited for her to do her thing and get my car. When she got in, she turned out to be a talker. And oh my God, I started asking her about being a woman towing. And the story she told, and she said, I tried to get out of it about 4 years back. She said, I've been doing it for 10 years, and you see some pretty awful stuff, really bad stuff. And I started getting really nervous on the highway because I started looking at the highway as a place of death and destruction. And it was getting to me. So I walked away, even though I always felt I was born to tow. And then she just was miserable, as it turns out, because she was born to tow. But she still got these sort of like, she said, when I was waiting, trying to get to you, I started feeling that panic I sometimes still feel now on the highway. I called my boyfriend. I said, man, I am stuck. I'm trying to get to this wreck, and I am stuck. And he said, breathe, baby. Just breathe. So I'm trying to breathe, but I'm stuck. I said, and it was my fault. I said, I'm so sorry. Anyway, eventually, and she also told me a story that I am not going to tell you because it was so horrific that by the time she finished telling me, I was shaken. It was about a murder of a family member. I don't even want to go there. But she said at one point, and he was too dumb to clean her blood out from under his fingernails. And that's how they got him. And if they hadn't gotten him, I swear to God, I would have. I'm thinking I would really now like to just get to my brother's house. So anyway, eventually, yes, she towed us in, and I was told it was problematic that my car would be ready in any time because it could be the damage to the hood and the damage to the hose and the I'll need a new hose and the coolant and the this and the that. And I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my mind. Anyway, my brother shows up and we get in his car. I leave my car in Toledo and we go off to Ann Arbor, which was very nice. And I must say, I had a very nice time there. It was very difficult finding a rental car, however, because it was some busy weekend in Ann Arbor. To find I won't put you through that disaster, but I finally did get one, and proceeded the next morning on my way. Next stop, Chicago, Illinois. So I'm driving this big. This is the only thing they had was one of these huge, like SUV things that I hate. And I drive a little car. I was so unnerved by sitting up so high and this thing being so wide and just new and different that I was driving like a little old lady. I was driving nervously because I now had what the tow truck driver had, which was this sense that highways are dangerous places. I proceeded in the right-hand lane, which for me is extremely unusual. I am usually in the fast lane. There I was in the little slow old lady lane, making sure I wasn't going any more than the person in front of me, and I was way, way far back from the person in front of me. I made my way almost out of Michigan, just heading into Indiana, and all of a sudden, something startling, I guess would be the right word, occurred. It was loud, it was fast, and it was startling. To my right, on the shoulder, zoomed by me, going like 1,000 miles an hour. This guy on a motorcycle, so close to my huge SUV thing that he almost took the side mirror off. God, I jumped. Oh my God, my heart is pounding. I thought, oh my God, I was almost in another wreck. No sooner had that happened, literally a second, than I hear and see in my rear view mirror cop cars, all lights going round and round and round and round. There must have been, I'm really not going to exaggerate, 5, 6 of them. 5 or 6. And they're in every lane, and cars are peeling off the road left, right, and center, and they come zooming by, followed maybe a second or two later by another 5 or 6 cop cars, vroom, 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 lights going, sirens going. And I was just sort of sitting there on the side of the road thinking, I really don't think I can take much more. I've never been in the middle of a high speed chase, have you? Good God. I looked online for days trying to find out what was going on. Easily 10 to 12 cops chasing a guy on a motorcycle. So, heart pounding, blood pressure elevated, I make my way. I'm trying to get to Susan's. And the GPS is giving me, I mean, the navigation is taking me into Chicago in the strangest way. I've never been told to go that way, where I got dumped into the downtown. It said Michigan Avenue. I said, Michigan Avenue? I don't want to be on Michigan Avenue. It's not like I don't know Chicago a little bit, but on the Michigan Avenue, I ended up at this very busy intersection with train trellis overhead, cars packed in every lane, every which way, and I hear more sirens. I think, dear God in heaven, please do not let those sirens be behind me. Please! I can't. Do not let the sirens be behind me. I'm looking, but I can't see. It is so packed, everything around me. And then the car behind me there was no place to go. If it was an emergency vehicle, there was no place to go. And the cars were still, and anyway, eventually, of course, there is this huge fire truck behind me, drum with the things going and the sirens, and I'm thinking, where am I? And I managed to get this huge hulking rental I was in sort of onto the roadway, and then a little bit more. I cannot begin to tell you, 3 fire trucks went by. Okay, that's all. I spent a day in Chicago. Had a nice day in Chicago. Um, Went up to Green Bay. Susan came up to Green Bay too, so it was my mom, my sister, and me in Green Bay, and the dog. And my reason for going is that every spring I go and I plant my mother's planters. She has a lot of them around in the backyard. And so I went to the flower nursery place to get started. And I said to my sister and my mother, Blue, that's my dog, Blue is going to be concerned because he's in a strange place. He's been in a lot of strange places in the last 36 hours, and he's used to just living with a little old lady quietly in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And, we went through the pandemic together. We're joined at the hip. I take him most places, and he's probably going to, you know, be concerned. So please just keep an eye on him. I left. I tried to do things as hurriedly as I could, and I get all the flowers, and I get back to the house, and I come in, and I find my mom and my sister out on the back screen porch reading. There's no dog. I say, where's Blue? And they said, well, he must have gone upstairs. Now, I have to tell you, I know my dog. That would have been odd. I mean, he would have stayed, I would think, with the people. He sort of knew. I said, really? Upstairs? So I went upstairs. I didn't see no dog. I called. No dog. I came running down the stairs. Well, I don't run anymore. I came limping down the stairs in a state of, confusion and said, Susan, he's not up there. She said, what? And then she starts looking around in the house and we're calling. And then I'm out the front door. She's out the back door. We're calling. And she said, but he didn't go out. He's got to be in the house. I go down to the basement. There's no reason he'd be in the basement. He is not there. Of all the panics I have been through in the last 36 or 48 hours, this is the biggie. I think I'm about to have a heart attack. I love this dog more than life itself. I don't know what. I can't begin to imagine what could have happened. I'm screaming outside. Blue! Blue! I don't know why. I don't know why. But somehow in my scanning of the horizon of the I I saw him. He was staring at me and he was standing on the roof. He was up on the roof. Uh, I said, "Whoa, whoa!" He looked like he might, upon seeing me, jump. No, stay, Blue, stay. I'm screaming, Susan. At this point, she's gotten a phone call and she's busy making a hair appointment. I'm screaming, Susan! She comes running out, eventually apologizing to the hairdresser, and says, "What?" I said, "Look, look." She sees him. She can't believe it. I say, "Take a picture," before we rescue him. Take a picture. This is one of those things no one's going to ever believe. So she took a picture. And then I said, "I'll stay out here. You run upstairs and get him." And she did. What he had done, apparently, is in attempting to find me, he had busted out the screen, he busted through the screen in the bedroom we were sleeping in and had, gotten himself on the roof and then couldn't get back or was terrified. And for all I know, that poor animal had been out there on the roof for like an hour. Who knows? Anyway, he's safe. He's alive. I got a picture of him on the roof. And that I thought would be the end of my travails on my summer vacation. But only one remained. And it wasn't a biggie. Nothing was a biggie after that. But my whole trip got changed because my car was, remember, in Toledo. I'm in Green Bay. I don't know what, I won't bore you with the rest of it. I had to drive back to friggin' Ann Arbor. Then my poor brother had to drive me once more to Toledo. Thank God they fixed the car enough so it was drivable, but it is not fixed. And I have to get it to a body shop now. And I was able to proceed back to Pittsburgh. That was Saturday. And back to Pittsburgh, Blue and I went in our beat up car, which had this alarm going off every 2 minutes saying, "Your hood will not lock. Your hood is not locked." All kinds of warnings going off, things fly. I know, leave me alone. Anyway, so we were doing okay, and then somewhere in Ohio, I'll just tell you, I later did find this online. There was a fatal 3-car wreck. Why am I laughing? I'm not. Involving a semi-trailer, a truck, and another poor guy. Um, and I ended up in this just ludicrous backup. Later saw that it was over 4 miles long. And I got to tell you, at this point, I couldn't take it anymore. And it took me a little while, and then I realized, you know what? You're sitting here, and I knew there was a exit because I'd seen the sign. there was an exit ahead of me, and I managed to sort of worm my way onto the shoulder, just like the motorcyclist. And I got to an exit and got the hell off the Ohio Turnpike. And thank God for these GPS-y things where you could just then say, I want to go to Pittsburgh. And it knows there's a backup on the, so they're not telling me the turnpike. I ended up seeing Cleveland in a way I haven't seen it before, the skyline and stuff. But I finally uh, made it home. And man, it is good to be here. That's all I want to say. And that is what I did on my summer vacation. And I intend to stay put. Of course, right after the show, you know what I have to do? I have to call my insurance agent. I have to find the body shop. I have to mail my. I have to call the Sylvania Municipal Court because I'm not quite sure exactly how much I owe them, and I just got to take care of that stuff. So that's all. Oh, so nothing exciting has happened with Michael Cohen on the. Okay. Jeez. I was supposed to at least take a break from the news, but that's just impossible now. And my mom and Susan were watching, Stormy Daniels' testimony, so I was too. And unbelievable, unbelievable. And then, I looked at the paper today, and one of the things that struck me was what? What about the new pirate pitcher? I haven't paid attention. We got a good one, don't we? Right? I don't know how to pronounce it. Skeens? Margaret, I'm out of it. I'm gonna have to. It's going to take me a while to get back up to speed. Um, but one of the things that struck me, what I was going to say when I was looking at the news today, and it's not that I haven't said this kind of thing before, is it is just so maddening how horrible, truly bad men are responsible for almost all of the horror. Now, part of that is because, there's been the patriarchy and women have not necessarily been in a position to cause as much trouble. But I don't think that it's all that. I think it's men and testosterone or something. And and the thing I was looking at, I mean, there was, you look at who's in the news, and it's bad guys and bad guys running countries. I saw, there's this piece in the New York Times today about this horrible person, Elon Musk, who just happens to be like the richest or second richest person on earth, and how he is cozying up to every autocrat in the world because those are his people. Other bad, powerful guys. And I'm thinking, what could go wrong? Really, really unbelievable. All right, let me see. Do I have anything? I'm sorry. This has been an unusual show. I agree. Um, do you know how old I am? I got a email. That's how old I am. I can't think of the term email. I got an email from somebody saying, "Hey, gang, we're already planning the 60th reunion." And I'm thinking, what? 60th reunion? And I have to tell you, they're planning ahead. I appreciate that. And of course, it's old women doing it because the girls are responsible always for this kind of thing. Never a guy. Never a guy. And so these are people whose names I barely recognize, who I graduated high school with. And they're wondering it's an email trying to find out, are you still alive? And if you are you able to travel? We're trying to figure out how many we could expect for a 60th high school reunion. Now I graduated in 66, so they're planning this a year and a half in advance. And they just are trying to get a general count. But already I have, since then, that came last night, I've already heard from two apparently still alive members of the Green Bay East High class of 66 who are inquiring as to whether or not I will be attending. Now, I don't know how any of us can commit, seeing as we're so friggin' old that you don't know. And then there's always that thing where you think, do I want anybody to see me? Can I present well? And then you think, oh, don't be silly. It's better than being in that long list of people that'll be, they'll make some little program that are dead. So, 60th high school reunion. Damn. Okay. Did you see the thing about the woman who was found living in a sign, the rooftop, triangular rooftop sign of like a Family Dollar kind of a store? I mean, the space was described as 5 feet wide, uh, no more than 15 feet in length, and 6 feet high. And there was this space inside this sign on top of this building in Midland, Michigan. And they found a woman who'd been living in the sign for a year. And they said she had a Keurig coffee maker, she had a computer, she had a printer, she had flooring, is what it said, and a little pantry, a mini desk, and I imagine a place to sleep, a bed. But everyone was just baffled. First of all, they still can't figure out how the hell she got in and out. And the police, who were finally called, said, man, I personally have never encountered a situation like this in neither of any of my colleagues. The woman was told she was 34 years old, and very nicely, they're not identifying her. The store is refusing any comment, saying, just leave this poor woman alone. If she was living in our sign, she's homeless. And the police are trying to get her to people. They wanted to get her to people who could help her. And she said that she did not want any of those services. So she was not charged with anything. And so another homeless person is back being homeless. Says they told her, you're not allowed to live here. And she left without incident. The only reason she got found out is the store had some contractors who were working on the roof, and they found her. Jeez. You know, that was my favorite story today. And I'm just easing my way into the other horrors of the world. Um, One thing, because I know, tomorrow I imagine we'll talk a lot more about Michael Cohen's testimony and how people think it's going. But there was a piece by Andrew Weissman about, the pluses and minuses of having him testify, and I'm sure you're all up on that. I mean, the big minus is he's a known perjurer. So when he takes the oath to tell the truth, well, yeah, I mean, he's lied. He's lied to federal judges. He's lied. He lies. He lied for Trump. What his job was? Well, being a lie and a thug for Trump. Um, but Weissman, who I do listen to about things regarding trials, um, says this. I have repeatedly observed an interesting phenomenon in cases in which the prosecution has a mountain of independent evidence of guilt, but still calls a flawed insider to provide unique, detailed, and direct evidence to the jury of the defendant's guilt. And he likens this to some mob trials that he was party to. That the way you finally get these guys is by having other evidence and then having this insider who can always be under cross-examination pummeled with their unreliability because they have served time, they're criminals, they're liars, they're killers, they're what the hell, and not necessarily reputable sources, but they're insiders. And an insider, however flawed their testimony is, well, back to Weissman. Jurors, he says, often want to hear someone recount what the jury already knows occurred, but that has not been said directly. The jurors will then often reach a verdict of guilty, and despite having found the conspiracy existed as recounted by this key criminal accomplice perjurer like Michael Cohen, the jury often will later say they did not need to hear his testimony. They knew the defendant was guilty before. But Weissman says whether they admit it or not, that often ties it up. that insider account. And he ends his little op-ed by saying, "We will soon learn whether this is what will happen in the people versus Donald Trump." Oh, God. So I hope you didn't see the poll. This came out right before the show started. I can't deal with it. And do you know who's in court with Trump today? I didn't know this. What a bunch of Senator J.D. Vance, the neighboring state of Ohio. God almighty. Yeah, so this now polls at this point are not. I know I shouldn't torture myself by even having read this, but I did. Because the latest Times, New York Times, and Siena poll, and another poll from the Philadelphia Inquirer are all saying the same thing, and it's scary because it shows Trump leading at this point in most of the swing states, including Pennsylvania. Good God. These latest polls show Trump ahead 47 to Biden's 44. And this is, by the way, these are registered voters that were polled. Now, that's different from likely voters. A lot of people are registered and they don't vote. Likely voters is the poll that I usually like to see. But I sure don't like looking at this. Trump in Arizona, 49 to Biden's 42. Same numbers in Michigan, Trump ahead, 49-42. Georgia, Trump 49, Biden 39. And then Nevada, really behind, Trump ahead by 50. The problem is those are all the battleground states, and to see that is so dispiriting and disquieting. But again, the only battleground state that is showing Biden ahead is the one I just left, Wisconsin, which is amazing. What the hell? You know, when you drive on this drive of mine, I went by two large pieces of property that tell a story. The one is at Lordstown, Ohio, right outside of Youngstown, right? When I used to be on the Turnpike, Ohio Turnpike there, I was going by a big and busy, back in the day, car plant, which must have provided, I cannot even imagine how many thousands of good jobs. But then, as you know, that plant went down. During Donald Trump's presidency, he made a few deals with a Chinese operation called Foxconn. And the name Foxconn is still sitting outside that now totally abandoned former car not dealer, car. Hang on a minute. Yeah. I'm sorry. This is not. I'm trying to look for something. I'm not finding it. Um, so I remember at the time this was a big to do. Yada yada yada. Well, it didn't. It went down. But when I traveled through Wisconsin, I went by another place where actually Joe Biden had been the day before because he was announcing something that was going to provide really good jobs in southern Wisconsin, Racine and Kenosha, south of Milwaukee, where Donald Trump, during his presidency, along with the then horrific Trumpian governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, had lured Foxconn to build some huge, God knows what, I can't even remember, but it was supposed, I mean, the governor and Trump were saying that this thing was going to uh, absolutely reinvigorate all of southern Wisconsin. And of course, in order to do it, Scott Walker, the Republican governor, gave Foxconn an extraordinary tax subsidy 10 times bigger than any such incentive package the state had ever given a company before. And Trump and Walker talked about what an amazing thing this was going to be. So I recall on my visits up to Wisconsin seeing unbelievable amount of construction. They were building the infrastructure, tax dollars. I mean, the people of Wisconsin were building new roads and infrastructure for this Chinese electronics company to come in and reinvigorate the economy. Trump was there for the so-called groundbreaking. He said what would grow up there would be, I kid you not, this is what he said, the eighth wonder of the world. Well, let me just say this. I have driven by what Trump said would be the eighth wonder of the world, and there's nothing there. It never happened. Just like what Foxconn did in Ohio with Trump's help. And it doesn't matter because the people of Wisconsin paid for the roads, sewer system, electricity, and on and on and on. But Biden was there because now, under a Democratic president and a Democratic governor, Tony Evers, they got Microsoft to move in to what was supposed to be the eighth wonder of the world. And they're going to put up an incredible facility. And they're going to have it work with the local technical college so that young people at that technical college are going to be trained for these jobs that will be really good jobs. And they are going to provide all the jobs that the Republicans promised and never, ever delivered. So, and yet, if you ask the American people, who do you trust to steer our economy? They say Trump. Isn't that amazing? And what it tells you is that we have an ignorant and bamboozled citizenry. And it could well be the end of the great American experiment. Yes, and there on that depressing note, I want to bring this show to a close. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here trying to remember how I end technically. A show to a close. Tomorrow, I'm not sure if Susan will be able to be with us. I'm hoping she will. She's helping her daughter, whose husband has had some really serious surgery, and she's down there, and I just don't know if she's available, but we'll see. And I'll hope she is. At any rate, I intend to be here. God help us all. And now I gotta go call the insurance company. Toodaloo. You have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.